Hey everyone, welcome to the channel, and today I'm going to be talking about printing out your astrophotography. I decided to make this video because when I started printing, there really wasn't a lot of help and resources out there for printing out my astrophotography. Now, there was a lot of tutorials out there for printing normal photography, but printing out your astrophotography is a little bit different, and there's a couple of differences you have to pay attention to. And I'll get into that later in the video, but I decided to make this video as an overview of everything you need to know to print out your astrophotography. Then I'll show you guys the process I use to print out my astrophotography with my home printer over there. Also, I just want to say I'm obviously not an expert. This is just my personal experience and opinions, so make sure you do your own research. But anyways, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, when you decide to print your astrophotography, you have two options. You can either use an online or local print shop. You bring them your photo, they print it out and send it back to you. Or you could use a home printer like I use. To decide which one to use, you really have to look at what you're going to do with your photos. If you're going to just print out a few photos to give to family and friends, or just to hang on your wall, then obviously it makes more sense to send it to a print shop. They just send you however many copies you want back, and you don't have to buy a whole printer and spend all that money. But if you're going to print out a lot of photos, maybe you're trying to sell them, then a home printer is definitely the way to go. Now, each option has its own advantages and disadvantages, obviously. For the online print services, the advantages are you don't have to buy a whole printer, and if you just want a few photos, that's an easy, good way to get your photos. And they're usually good quality as long as you find a good print shop. Now, some of the problems I have with those online print shops is the shipping on the photos can get pretty expensive when they send them back to you. That's something I noticed, and that kind of discouraged me to print out my astrophotography until I got my own printer. Another con I realized about the online print services is that you don't really get to see and test out different papers, different levels on your photo. You're kind of leaving it up to the company to decide how they want your photo to look. Usually they try to make it as accurate to the photo as possible, but printing is a little different than on a screen, and I think sometimes you can be disappointed with the print that comes back. Now, some of the pros for a home printer is that you get to experiment as much as you want with your photos until you're completely satisfied with it. Also, an overlooked thing I think is that it adds a whole nother aspect to the hobby. It allows you to turn your digital work that you put a bunch of time in, and it turns it into a physical product that you can see and really show off to people. And I think it's also its own skill set, so it definitely added a lot to the hobby for me. Now, obviously, there's cons, like, for instance, printers are expensive, the ink and paper can get really expensive, and that's a whole nother skill set you have to learn, printing out astrophotography, which is even a little more challenging than normal photography sometimes. But now I'm going to show you guys my home printer over there and show you the entire process I use to print out my astrophotography. So let's go ahead and get into that. So here it is. It's the Epson EcoTank ET8550, and I chose this printer because it's relatively inexpensive compared to higher end printers, and it uses the ink bottles instead of the super expensive ink cartridges. And I'm super impressed with the quality, and I'll show you guys some examples, but this is the printer I've been using for about a month now. The paper I'm using is the Epson Ultra Premium Photo Paper Luster 13 by 19 size, and I think it looks really good for astrophotography. I just have to pull these extenders out right here and load in one of these big sheets of 13 by 19 paper. Then on the screen here, you just select what paper and size you have, but that's already set from last time, so I don't have to worry about that. Okay, now for the computer side of printing, I'm using Affinity Photo, which is free, and I just don't pay for Photoshop, and this does exactly what I need it to do for printing, so this is what I use. This is a photo I took of the Iris Nebula last summer, and I think it's a good test print because it has a lot of faint, dusty regions in the dark areas, and sometimes if the printer's not good, it'll get washed out and you won't see that, so we're going to see exactly how good this print turns out. What I do is I go up to Develop, and then one of those things with astrophotography is that when you print, you lose some brightness and you lose some saturation. So I'm going to go ahead and boost those. So I'm going to slightly boost the exposure, not too much. I also want to boost the saturation, decent amount. That should be good for the print because some of the saturation is going to go away. I also want to raise the black point slightly. I think this looks pretty good right here. It's a tiny bit blown out here with that star, but I don't think we'll notice that in the print. So what I want to do now is add a little white border to make the photo pop a little bit. So I'm going to come down here to where it says Layer Effects, go to Outline, change the color to white, and then change the alignment to Inside. And usually I use around like 260. And you can see now I have a white border, and I think that's pretty good actually for a border. Maybe I'll go up to 270. Maybe we'll do 275. I think that looks pretty nice. Now I can go up to File and Print. So I want to go to Properties, and a nice thing I did is I set up this paper profile and color profile, so I don't have to set all those settings every time. I can just select that. Then I go to Fit Type, Fit to Printable. Then I come down here to Rasterization, and then I set my DPI to 720. I'm not exactly sure what the best value for this is, but I found it works pretty good, so I just stick with that. Then all I have to do is hit OK, and it will start printing. The printing takes anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes just because the paper is pretty big. So I'll just let that run, and we can check on the results in a few minutes. Well, my phone actually ran out of storage, so I couldn't finish the time lapse, but here is the final print right here. Hopefully you can see it pretty good. Well, that about does it, and like I said, I'm not an expert, and I just started this like a month ago, so I'm still trying to learn a bunch of new techniques and stuff, and there's always a lot to improve with this. If you could let me know down in the comments ways I can improve this or just my videos in general, I would really appreciate that. And if you guys want to support the channel and help it grow, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.